let's turn to the criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Bob Bianchi, who's here a lot, to talk the legal aspects of all of this. Legally speaking, big picture, your takeaway?
Well, remember, this is about proving a case to 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt using criminal law investigative standards. So the 10 things that you clicked off, Shep, are pretty damning when you take them in their totality. And the report is saying no collusion or conspiracy, very firm with that. Prosecutors speak on the obstruction is, we're not passing on it, but we're telling you it doesn't exonerate him. And I found this line to be most telling.
What he said was, if I could exonerate him, I would.
I would.
But I can't.
Right. If we were confident there was no obstruction, they would let everybody know that. Now, you have to go back to pages 1 and 2 of the report as well.
They kicked this to Congress. And
you know what? If you go back to pages 1 and 2, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
The DOJ memo is there. We are not passing on whether or not we can indict a sitting president. Here is the data and the information. Here you are, Congress. You have a power. Take all this information and all this data. We're telling you he's not innocent. You do with it what you feel you need to.
We're telling you we can't confirm. Now we're giving you our evidence. When you tell the Attorney General, who's recused himself because rules and regulations required that he do so, to unrecuse himself, you're clearly interfering. But are you obstructing?
Great question.
It's a legal question.
Yeah, and that's what comes down to the corrupt intent. And I've said this before, and some of your audience gets a little agitated when I say it, but Donald Trump does not necessarily speak in exactly precise language, and things kind of move, and statements are malleable. So it becomes very difficult for a prosecutor to prove corrupt intent when they don't have an underlying crime. So while you don't need an underlying crime, which they weren't able to establish here, it's difficult to know, as it's noted in the report, whether or not he was, like, for example, firing Comey because he wanted to scuttle the investigation, or under his constitutional rights under Article 2 of the Constitution was saying, I'm the chief executive. I don't believe that this investigation is correct. I believe that you're trying to scuttle my administration, and in the national security interest, you need to go. It's very difficult to make a determination as to what his intentions and his motives were, and that's essential when you don't have an underlying crime.
When you say that a meeting was about one thing, and you're lying about it, when it was actually about something else, in an effort to keep that information from the public, that's interfering in a sense, but is it obstruction? The Attorney General, well, the Mueller team didn't pass judgment on any of those matters. It just said, here are the things that the president did. And it said, because at least in part of a standing principle, of a standing policy within the Department of Justice, we're not even considering this. We didn't even begin this process with a thought toward prosecuting. That's for others.
Right.
So he takes these 448 pages and says, specifically, I guess now, Nancy Pelosi, here you go.
Right. I mean, because their goal is very limited, very circumspect. The public has basically determined that the truth of this matter is whether or not these people find Mueller's team beyond a reasonable doubt they have a case they can establish. But he's got certain things that an ordinary citizen doesn't have, like you've indicated. The DOJ can't indict him. So they're not saying he didn't obstruct justice. They're just saying that it's not a prosecutable offense. And that's why Congress or another agency, it's just like a case like O.J. O.J. may be found not guilty in a criminal court beyond a reasonable doubt by 12 people, but found responsible by a preponderance of the evidence in the civil court. It's not saying it's not truthful. It's just basically saying in our little world, for a little microscopic thing that we're supposed to do, which is criminal investigation, given the DOJ memo that says we can't prosecute, here's all the data that we believe points towards obstruction. And basically, if you take it as a mosaic, now you, Congress, have a power if you choose to do so.
What did you think of William Barr, the Attorney General, this morning?
You know, I was disappointed. Look, I think that I'm glad the report is largely unredacted. It gives us enough information to have this discussion we're having now. But I felt that he was trying to be a cheerleader for the president. And I think that's ill-advised for the president himself. This report speaks for itself. But when he's getting up there and he's making comments that are, you know, he was emotionally upset, well, boy, that bothered me, Shep. And I know your audience may get agitated, but it bothered me, and I'll tell you why. The president never availed himself to be interviewed to express that. And the answers that he gave to the questions in the interrogatories, it's clear in the report, was wholly incomplete. I don't remember, I don't recall, I don't know. And when they want more specific answers to those questions, he wouldn't give them. So where is the Attorney General coming up with what the emotional temperature was? It was just a gratuitous comment, not a lawyerly one.
If the goal is to control the narrative, though the Attorney General is supposed to work for the people, not the President. In this case, if you're the President and the attempt is to control the narrative, in other words, to tell people, here's what it's going to say, before it gets out there, all 448 pages. If I'm the president, I'm real happy with what William Barr did this morning.
Yeah, but you know,
but if I'm one seeking the truth about what's in this report, in many cases, we were deceived.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of statements there that were clearly cheerleading for the president, and I think that wasn't good for anybody, including the president.
Specifically, he said that the president fully cooperated.
Right.
Where the president was openly trying to keep people from cooperating and openly trying to keep his own testimony from them. That is not full cooperation by anyone's definition.
Yeah, that was surprising, especially given the number of instances that they talked about with respect to the obstruction charge of the things that were being done after the firing of Comey, up to and including trying to get Don McGahn to fire the special counsel, which he refused to do, and all of the witnesses that he was trying to, when he was supporting Manafort, when he was supporting, Cohen at the time, trying to dangle out things there in public view in order to embolden them, including pardons.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Shep.
Nice to see you.